Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast, a show where normal guys talk about the films that they love. And here are your hosts, Bryce Thompson, Brian Hammond, and Cody Ryrie. Now get ready, because the show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Valhalla Filmcast. I am Bryce Thompson, and I'm here with two other people. Like always, Cody Ryrie and Brian Hammond. Introduce yourselves.
Yeah, thank you. That felt special.
You introduced me. I feel like I'd be repeating myself.
Well, I didn't mean to say introduce yourselves. I meant to say just say something, but whatever. I can say what I want. I'm starting it off. Here we go. So today we're talking about John Hughes, the creator of many, I would say family tradition movies. I would think that there's a lot of movies that I think you hear people talk about that they just watch constantly with their families. Whether he wrote them, which he probably most likely did, and or directed them. I know that I have there's a ton of movies that I mean you don't even know the movies that he like wrote. And you're just shocked. You're shocked when you find out. Like, wow, didn't even know.
Very prolific.
You look him up on IMDb, and it's a giant list. At least the writing is. The directing is only like 7 movies, 8 movies. But the writing is, out the window and over the hill.
Yeah, he wrote 47, credited for 47, and credited for 8 directors. So
he has to hold some record, doesn't he? I mean, not for the most prolific, but I mean the most hits or box office hits, right? Because every single one of them was like a childhood classic. It seems like, one that we grew up on.
Well, up until a certain point, yes, and then it seems like he had a real late career dip. Before dying at like 56, didn't he? He died really young.
He died young.
Yeah, he died at 59.
59, yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it kind of seems like once he, like, Flubber, and then kind of after that, it kind of like took a dive.
Are you including Flubber in the dive?
Yeah, I would say that was like the the part where it took a dip.
But still, I mean, it was a horrible, horrible film, right? I mean, but as far as box office, how did it do?
I saw it.
I mean, so
I didn't go to movies.
So box office, box office was $80 million.
That's insane.
Gross was $177 million. So, even though it was a crappy movie, I mean, I'm talking of actual, successful.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, he's nowhere near like Spielberg. Spielberg's Back Porch made more money than all his movies put together. But yes, I understand what you're saying.
With screenwriting, though?
No, Spielberg doesn't write jack.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Screenwriting, not directing. Screenwriting. He has to hold a record for the most, written shows that...
Well, I will say, I think the best movies that he does are the ones where he directed too. I don't know. I mean, because my favorites, I was looking at my favorites, and they're like a new favorite I just watched this last week was The Breakfast Club, which was incredibly good. That was just profound and funny and everything it should have been. And I feel the same way about Ferris Bueller, which he also directed, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which we've discussed. One of those hilarious movies, has a really moving ending and works really well. But then you get into stuff where he stops directing, and it almost seems like Home Alone was the beginning of the downfall.
Yeah.
Like, I like Home Alone, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But Home Alone's nowhere near as moving or thought-provoking as The Breakfast Club or, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And then after that, it seems... I was watching this, we picked a movie, my brother and I was going to tell you this. And we're like, we should watch a movie, and we're looking on Amazon to see what's free. And Dennis the Menace was one of the movies that was on there for free. And we were like, hey, we haven't watched that in like 15 years. We used to watch that as kids all the time. So we ended up watching Dennis the Menace, and during the opening credits, there it is, a John Hughes production, screenplay by John Hughes. And I was like, what?
It's quite good.
So that was into the downfall-ish, because it's not as good as the early ones, but it's really funny still.
Yeah.
Like, and Walter Matthau was great in that. So, but I noticed this also, it's basically Home Alone, too. Like, it's little kid that causes all kinds of adults, like, pain, including the thief that comes into town and wants to, like, take him captive. I was like, hey, this is Home Alone. This is the same thing. So, not bad for what it is, but definitely part of the downhill slide, I think. So.
Yeah, I think that his movies, they definitely grab you. I will agree with you that probably his best movies are ones that he directed. I mean, everyone knows how much I love Plane, Trains, and Automobiles. I mean, even though the weekly update quiz might not have portrayed that, but the love is there. It is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's just iconic with his movies. The way his movies are, they have like a certain feel to them, and like when you go and you see the movies that he's written or directed, and you might be like kind of surprised, but then you go, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like with Dennis the Menace, you go, okay, that's kind of interesting. But like you said, it kind of has that same feel as like Home Alone, and they kind of have the same feel. It's like a silly, but it's kind of like hits you in the heart, and you're like, oh, this is such a good movie. It's kind of they're movies that make you have the feels, if you will, and
the feels,
they're just fun. They're fun movies, and they're fun to watch with your family, or just to sit down and have something relaxing, not watching movies about murderers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the thing that works for me in his stuff is that the comedy seems to come from a very honest place. And I think that's what kind of went away for me later on, is, the comedy in The Breakfast Club comes from, oh, I know that guy. I know that assistant principal. I know that guy who's the stoner, or the girl who's the popular girl. And of course he subverts that by showing you that they're all people that are very similar, but at the same time, that's where the comedy comes from. And then later on, in things like Home Alone and Dennis the Menace, the comedy comes from people falling on stuff. And a lot of it's done well, don't get me wrong, and I think it's funny, but it works better for me when it's coming from a character place and a place of truth, as opposed to, wood chips and paint on somebody's chicken that they're grilling. So that's why I prefer the earlier stuff.
Yeah. Well, the earlier stuff, I don't want to say, I mean, raw. It's not more raw, like, I guess more raw emotion. It is. It's more real. I mean, you talked about kind of the slippery slope of him, his downfall, and it's when he kind of got out of that, more adult-centered comedy that, really pulls on the heartstrings and it's really relatable. And he started putting out all these like kids films, which were successes, a lot of them, because they were kids films. But it lacks that punch, that the emotional punch that the earlier works do have. And so I agree with you 100%. I mean, there's definitely a lot more value, and I think critically as well. I mean, critics would agree with you, Cody, that his earlier stuff is by far the best. So
there was a few. This goes back to when we give Netflix recommendations. I think it's 16 Candles is on Netflix. I have not seen that one yet, so I put it on my list when we were getting ready to do this show. And there's also one called, I think it's She's Having a Baby. That's what it's called. And I haven't seen that one either. I saw a preview for it. It actually looked really good.
It is good.
That I wanted to see.
I didn't know this, but he directed Weird Science. I quite enjoyed that movie, actually.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and it's kind of funny. I think that it kind of just gets into the brain of every teenage boy, every nerd, and it kind of pulls them out, and it's fun. I like it, and it stars Anthony Michael Hall, who's in like all of his movies, which is
and then he was the reporter in The Dark Knight.
Yes.
So as an adult.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to name our favorite John Hughes movie to end it up?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously for Bryce,
Simple.
that one's easy. But I'm going to go with, even though I was really, really impacted by The Breakfast Club, and I think it's one I'm going to revisit a ton, I still have to go with Ferris Bueller. Because for me, that's my Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That's the one that my mom and us would all sit down and watch, edited for TV, because I watched it unedited for TV for the first time, and I was like, oh, wow. And it's not even rated R. It's just
PG-13.
a little bit rougher than 1992 TV edited Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But I really like the feeling it captures of being on the cusp of adulthood. He's going off to do things, and he takes one last day to kind of remember everything great about adolescence. And it's a really nice counterbalance to The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is really about kind of hard things in adolescence. But Ferris Bueller is all about the great things about being an adolescent, being free and spontaneous and having lots of friends, those things that I can relate to somewhat. So that's why I like that one. I go back to that one as my favorite.
Mine is going to be Breakfast Club. I watched that very early on, I guess in television probably, but I've watched that over and over, and that's the one that is my go-to, John Hughes. I love it. I watch it over and over, and I think, like we talked about, it's just so much more real, I think. I love Ferris Bueller, don't get me wrong, and all of them are great, the ones he directed. So, but that's my pick.
Yeah, everyone already knows this because I said it. But Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is by far, easily, hands down my favorite. But it's my favorite because of growing up with it, and I think that's why. I think if I wouldn't have grown up with it and I just would have watched it recently, it probably wouldn't be my favorite. I would probably pick Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If I hadn't watched it every day of my life growing up. Well, not every day, but every year of my life growing up. But yeah, I really love Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's really good. I really like Cameron. He cracks me up. He's freaking hilarious. And he kind of makes the movie for me. And I really like the principle, how he goes to such extremes just to get this stupid punk, what he deserves. I think that's so funny because no principal's going to do that, which is even more hilarious. That it's awesome. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is just a good movie. You could say it's family friendly, but it's not really. But that's okay. It's still awesome. So watch it with your family. John Hughes. He made some classic movies, some movies that everyone can watch. I don't think there's a movie that a person can't grab a hold of and say, yeah, I can watch that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very relatable. Very, very relatable.
I mean, even in his, Drill Bit Taylor, I'm sure that there's someone that just absolutely loves that movie, which good for you. Every movie deserves a fan, so good job.
Well, you bring that up. My sister-in-law, her dad, loves the Beethoven movies.
Yeah,
there you
go.
Thing
for him, and that's John Hughes.
I can't say that I don't mind a good old Beethoven every once in a while. Just.
And I don't mind the Home Alone.
Yeah.
Like every holiday season, I mean, we'll pop that in. So.
John Hughes, the legend that has kind of, I would say, gone under the rug a little bit. Kind of, because you don't really hear about him all that much. In passing, you might, but he's never celebrated or. I mean, he only has one nomination. So, That's
yeah,
kind of,
you don't. When they say, "Oh, name all your favorite great directors," everybody thinks of Scorsese and Spielberg and all those people. And I think, especially if you're talking about kind of Frank Capra-esque kind of directors, I think of John Hughes as being as good as any of those people, because he really had a voice too. He really had a point of view, and it really worked. So I'm glad that we're doing this to kind of bring awareness to it, and it's given me a whole new list of movies I want to watch that I've missed to catch up on him. And maybe somebody else out there, you never heard of John Hughes or just one of his movies, there's a lot more that are worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely. I would just venture and just check out all that you can, because there's probably movies that you love that you don't even know that are John Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely have to.
Good news is, sorry, Bryce.
You're good.
The good news is that a couple of his films are coming out on Blu-ray that I've been waiting for a long time. Great Outdoors, and Beethoven as well, I think, so for the first time ever.
See all that dog hair in high definition. It'll be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been the Valhalla Filmcast. I'm Bryce Thompson.
I'm Brian Hammond.
And I'm Kudarari.
The following views, opinions, and commentary are the sole property of the Valhalla Filmcast. Any unauthorized reproduction without prior consent is prohibited. Any incidental music, audio clips, or film trailers are used for the sole purpose of film criticism and commentary as allowed under the Fair Use Act.